Yes, good evening to one and all. Yes, you able to hear me, Mr. Prabhakaran?
Ma'am.
Yes. Yes, good evening to one and all. First, I welcome you all for the DPT webinar on Java programming. First, I like to thank CTS for accepting our session. Today, our topic is Java programming. The resource person who is going to address you is Sujit Nayak. Sir, we welcome you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Jayanti, ma'am.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, the audience here today is both third years and first years are here. The session is about Java programming. I welcome you all once again. It's over to Sujit sir. He will start the session now.
Thank you, Jayanti, ma'am, for
Okay,
giving
okay,
a
sir. Fine, fine, fine.
nice,
Thanks
nice.
a lot for accepting.
Thanks, ma'am. It's our pleasure, to share our experiences for our,
Sure,
on.
sir. Thank. It will be very helpful to our students about your experience, about the industry standards. Thank you. Thank you. You can start the session, sir.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Okay.
So first of all, I would like to share my, give my introduction, and I have been associated with the Cognizant for almost around to 3 years, and I have a total experience of around 6 years into the software industry. Uh, I'm into completely development onto Java platform. Apart from Java, I have been working closely with the IBM product tools like IBM FileNet. Uh, Apart working on the IBM platform, I have been exposed to Python and some scripting. Whenever we get a client requirement that we need to come up with our solutions. So the work nature will be varying from Java to some other coding standards like Python or scriptings, shell scripting. So mostly it is on autonomous part. So that's how our nature of work will depend. So when we have a good exposure around on a basic language, let's say Java, so it gives a flexibility, and it will helps us to transform our programming language from one language to another language. So we never faced any challenges like when we are uh, like you know getting some requirement, and the nature of language will be like let's say .NET or maybe Python script or some other else. So once we have a good understanding or basic knowledge on Java, so it gives a lot of flexibility and scope to work around across the platforms. So let's start with the the first uh, approach with the Java, understanding like what Java it is, and our experiences while working on using Java language. So first of all, I'll be sharing my slides which I have prepared yesterday. So we'll go one after the another just to understand the basics of Java and how we are using the concepts of Java in our programming language. So let me start sharing that slides. Hope you can able to see my screen now, Jayanti ma'am.
Yes, sir, it's visible. It's visible.
Okay. So first of all, we'll try to understand like what is Java and what it does and how we are meeting the client requirement. So objective will be to understand the object oriented, because using the object oriented principle, how we are designing or coming up with a solution for a requirement. So the nature of requirement will be building up a standalone application to designing a web based application. So just I want to give a a high overview around what exactly the standalone application. Standalone application just for say something which runs on a computer. So let's say when you are trying to execute just to check what is the total number of headcounts in a for a section for the stream BCA. So either that can be designed using WebEst, that which is something deployed into the server, or something that runs like a script. So this is how we, we understand the requirement, and based on that we come up with whether it will be standalone or something that is deployed over that server. So
Sujit,
first,
sorry to disturb. Santosh here.
yes, Santosh.
Yeah, can you please go to the presentation mode so that the screen will be in a larger size?
Oh, okay, okay. Yes, Santosh. Now it is visible.
No, your screen has been presented, but I'm asking you to go to the presentation mode.
Just you're asking to present, that is slideshow, right, sir?
Slideshow.
Okay,
Yes.
F5, press F5 or slideshow.
okay, okay. Yeah, sorry. Okay.
Fine, fine.
Fine now. Yes.
Okay, so first of all, we'll go over the basics of Java. That will give like an introduction to the Java, how we are going to set up Java in our system or in a computer or a laptop, and how do we need to run our Java program and understand what is IDE. Then we'll come up with a OOPS concept, that where exactly the basics of Java will start. So it will just take a 5 minute just to come up with from starting from introduction Java to setting up our IDE. So now now the first thing will be JVM. Now whenever we go to our Oracle website, we have a something like JDK. So let's say at present like we are using 1.8 JDK version in our project. So we go to that Oracle website. So there we have Java SE 1.8 that will come as a jar file. So we do download that jar file. So once the JDK is available, uh, it will become as an installation file. So once we install the JDK, so that will be installed into your computer. So once it has been installed, it will have something like the JDK will be coming as a part of like this is something we see. So it will be package of like JVM, and plus it will come up with some development tools. Now what JVM will do? So JVM will have its own way to where it will transcript our Java code into machine understanding level language that we call as a bytecode. Now once this bytecode has been converted, so when we are running our program, right? So once the program has been run, so our JVM will have like a class loader system. Hope you all are aware. Once you have been going through that, Java as a part of your curriculum. So it will have its class loader system. So the class loader will look for a dot plus file into a class path. Now here we see something like Java libraries that we call as an rt.jar and some other packages that will be available as part of our JDK installation. Now, once you install your JDK, right, so it will be there in your C drive. So if you see under program files, it will be packaged as a Java folder. So once we navigate to Java folder, we see something like JRE, one sub package, one sub folder or sub package. So if you see into look into JRE, you will come across with this rt.jar. So rt.jar is nothing; it's a runtime jar, which will have some preloaded class files, like something you use in Java. If you see, we are using some util package, lang package, or some collection classes we are using. String or string buffer or string builder or maybe object class which you're using. So it will be all composed into your rt.jar. Now, once we are developing our program and once we are running our program, right? So this JVM will, read this machine understandable code. So using the help of rt.jar, where it will compile and where it will run your program. So once you are running your program, right? So with the help of development tools, let's say Java C or maybe Java, the command which we are passing in command line tool, right? Java, then your name of your main class, then your program runs. So that is how all your JDK will help you to, like, starting from compiling a class to running a program. Now we'll understand what does all about Java API. Java API, it's like, we can say it's an application program interface. That means what we saw here is a kind of RT.jar, right? We can say like the Oracle team now who are handling the Java and development of Java, right? So they will, they will give their own set of classes and interfaces as a part of this JDK development. Now, when we are designing a program, let's say we have some requirement that we need to head count student present in for the section of BCA for the assessment for the year of 20, 2020 to 2021. So our just program looks very simple. But when we start, designing an application, so we need lot of, functions to be written, how the functions need to be called, and how the program will look like. So everything we need to come up. Now, to make it very simpler, now what this Oracle team has done, so they have given their own set of classes, interfaces, and functions. With the help of using those, functions available or classes available or interface available, we can easily program a, requirement, and we can come up with our solution. So that is how this API will help us. So let's say when we are, suppose we have a, example, like, how we can print an hello world here. So everyone will be very much acquainted, like the basic, program when we are trying to do, when we are trying to study, Java, we'll come across with like system.out.println hello world. Now it looks very easy, it looks very pretty, it looks very handy. Like what does system.out.println do? So it just displays a program or just displays an output. But if you see the system or something comes from a this from API. So all those will be composed as a part of this RT.jar. So it makes our programming very simpler, and within a small time frame, like we can give our solution for a complex requirement. So once our JDK has been installed into our system, so the first thing we need to do is to set up our Java. So we used to set the class path in our environment variables. So I've just given like in a snapshot, like how does we need to set a path here. So going to that environment variable, you can set your path or class path. So you need to locate your or navigate your this JRE path. So there's something, right, when we are installing this JDK, so it will by default, it will take this path location like C drive, then program files. Underneath to it, it will creating a Java folder. So when you start exploring inside the Java folder, you will see a JRE. So that path you need to mention as part of class path. So once this class path has been done, right? So every time when you are trying to code a program, when you're trying to do some like study like how this programming will behave. So every time you don't need to set your class path and then you need to compile a program and then you need to run a program, because it will be tedious and it will be like same cyclic process. So instead of we manually do something in command line tool, so it is always advisable set your class path in environment variable. Then you can do n number of programs, compile, and you can easily run without doing the same set of configurations every time. So it is always advisable set your class path as part of environment variable. So this is how it shows like how you are going to set this class path variable, which I already mentioned. Like if you go to control panel and if you click search for environment variables, you can set this variable in path and it will point to your JDK installation path. Now this is how like it will be basic, like how this how this journey of your Java coding to a Java program into execution of your file, how this flow will take place. So first it will start from your Suppose you have composed a program or you written a program which is something like myclass.java, because obviously when you are saving your Java program, the, it will be saved as a .java. It will take this Java extension. Now once you save your program, right, so with the help of your Java C command, like you can compile your Java. So once your Java program has been compiled, so it will be stored as a .class file. Now, as I said, right, the JDK will have its own JVM. So the JVM, what will do, it will start interpreting your class file. So a class file is nothing; it's all about bytecode format. Now then, this JVM will try to look for this .class file into the class path. Then we'll have a set of class loader. So class loader will start reading your .class file from the class path. Then it will start executing. It will start reading your bytecode. So the computer will understand like what this bytecode will represent, and it will start executing as per our the command which we have written as part of our Java program. So this is how the flow looks like. It looks very simple, but when we go very deeper, it there involves a lot of mechanism. But we should have a basic understand like how this journey of Java file to Java class, then your class loader and your execution of program happens. Now the next thing is that ID. It is very important topic here because whenever in our development phase, in our development life cycle, our ID is very important, because without the help of IDE, our effort of writing a program to testing a program, it looks very complicated. It brings out a lot of complexity here. So to minimize the effort and to minimize the time consumption, so there are different vendors. They have given their own tool. Hope you all are aware about the Eclipse, IBM RAD, and there are NetBeans. So there are a lot of vendors are there. They have given their own set of tools where you can program your Java Java code, and you can easily compile them. You can easily execute them, and you can easily see the results. So this ID composed of lot of packages. That means it can compile, it can interpret, you can easily debug, and also it connected with some CI/CD pipeline. That is like something like where you can your ID will be integrated to your Git repository. So what are the latest code you have developed? So all will be with a simple command. You can easily check in and check out into your Git repository. So this is something all about like when you come into a like programming world, when you come into a like when you're joining to as a team as part of a project. So we'll get to know a lot of process involved. So for a time being, you should have a clear understanding about what IDE will do. So it's just a software or just an platform where you can easily code your program. So you have a lot of options. You can see a lot of buttons over there. So if you haven't used the Eclipse, I will start encourage you to start at least using the Eclipse part, because whenever you go to industry, right, so you will be very much familiar with the Eclipse thing. So that is how the first approach to software industry begins. So as I see, right, debugger, being whatever my past experiences on involving into a lot of complexity program, and some we used to face a lot of challenges because our requirement is something like the program is all that application has already been developed for the last 10 years. Suddenly they have a requirement that we need to change some functionality. So now what we have to do first thing, when as a developer, the first challenge is like you need to understand what is that application. So nobody is there to they will not give any document like how this application will work and what is the flow of that code. So what we used to do with the help of this debugger, we can easily identify where exactly the flow starts and where exactly the exception occur and what is the nature of exception. So based on that, we start put our all understanding of that application, and we'll get to know, okay, this is the requirement and this is the place exactly where we need to come up with our solution. So I will I will suggest you. So if you haven't exposed to IDE, start installing your Eclipse. Eclipse is the best. It's an open source software where you can install in your laptop or computer. So it's an open source, so you don't need to pay anything to the vendor. So once your Eclipse has been installed, start writing your program, at least a simple program, understand how this debugger will work, how you are going to compile and how you can run. Then after that, it will be very easy when you go to your industry standards. So as I see, right, so there are a lot of vendors which brings up their own ID, like NetBeans, Eclipse, Visual Studio, that is something comes from your .NET, so BlueJ, even IBM RAD, that comes something comes from your IBM software. So as I said, right, that ID makes your effort effortless, and also within a small time frame, like you can code your program, you can build a project, you can do an end-to-end testing, and there are a lot of features are available which is yet to explore. So that is my past experience, like being coming from a very fresher to my exposure to a very very complex project, that helps me to how to cope up with the challenging environment and how to finish a task within a timeline. So this is how basic program will look like. So we have something like class hello world. So that that's the signature of your, like, how does Java nomenclature, I can say, like how you need to write a Java class. So class name something follow like hello world. So it will have some main method, because there exactly your execution of program will start. So that's it, just a highlight like how your Java program looks like. So as I said, right, so like this is something like we have Eclipse. So we have just created a project, and we have created our own Java class, something like hello world.java. So once it is done, then you can compile, and you can run with this help of some tools available, where you can right click, you can see like something run as then Java application, then your program will start executing. So there you can see have a console, and you can see that output. Because earlier when we are not exposed to that, right, so we used to compile and run using the command line tool. But now there is no need to bring out this command line tool, so all your ID will do, like compiling, running. You can see your output, you can do a debug, you can see where exactly the error of your program. So all these things will become as a part of package. So you haven't installed your Eclipse, I will suggest you start exploring the Eclipse, because that's the first step to go into your software industry. Even there is a scope of something like code assist, let's say I'm writing a program, right? Suppose I'm typing something system.out.println. Now let's say I know about system, but I don't know how to display program, what is the command to be used. Now when I write system and dot, then I press something uh, control space, then it will give some hint, something like this. Control space key if you do, so it will give you like system.out. So system class will have some inbuilt functions, inbuilt method. So it will give you list of those methods. So based on that, your requirement, you can select one of the method, and you can do your approach here. So this is how, so we can see, right? So you don't need to have a good understanding about like what every class has some methods, or what are the fields, variables available for a class. So you don't need to mug up anything. So with the help of RAID, with the help of IDE, you can easily find out what is the name of class and what are the methods available inside the class. Only just you need to have some awareness about the shortcuts or the tools available for that IDE, or that options available into that IDE. Now we'll start here, what is the basic principle of Java, because that is the most important fundamental concept here. Many times, like, we faced lot of challenges, because initially when I joined as a software developer, I have a little exposure towards object oriented programming concept, because uh, I have completed my BTech from the branch of electronics and communication. So I was more into designing a circuit rather than coding some or complexity programs. So when I started working around in software industry, I used to get a lot of challenges. I was trying to cope up with the what are the benefits or features available in Java. So as I learned a lot, as I started working around with a lot of requirements, so I just got to know, like, okay, what is the OOPS concept. So on fly we need to learn and we need to work. So first I will give like what exactly OOPS concept. So OOPS concept nothing but it's a like kind of object oriented principle. That is something like a kind of class and object concept here. So when we start exploring about class and object concept, we'll come across with a lot of things like your inheritance, polymorphism, and abstraction, then encapsulation. So these are the four pillars of your Java programming. So if you are unaware about at least one of this, it is very difficult to understand the Java, and rather it is a simple programming to a complex programming. Everywhere you will be surrounded with the soups. So if you have some, even at least a little bit of knowledge on loops, I will suggest you to try to explore more on this inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, and encapsulation. So first, we'll understand what is inheritance. Inheritance is something like okay. Before giving a kick start on inheritance, first I will come up with the something like class and object. So I have designed my slide. So let me navigate to class and object there. Then we'll come up with this inheritance and polymorphism. Okay. Now classes, it's something like I will start off with a very simple example. Let's say understand human being. So human being, what we have, like a human being, it has its own characteristics. That means we have two hands, two legs, one face. Face will have some eyes, nose, and ears. So it is common across the race, common across the region, or common across the caste. So everyone will have the same features like it will have a face, then eye or ear or nose, then hands and legs, something like. So same way, so it defines a class. That means it will have some common characteristics or some common features. Similarly, when we are coming as an object, right? So let's say our RVS college has a BCA program. So for the year of 2020 to 2021, they have a student of around 350. So if you start picking up every entity of 350 strength, right? So everyone will be counted as an object of class BCA. So BCA will have its own characteristics. That means it will have some syllabus, it will have some curriculum, it will have some bench strength, and every student which is associated for that BCA program will be termed as an object. So as I relate, right, human being as a class, and every human being, so maybe from Tamil Nadu, maybe from Odisha, maybe from Delhi, and maybe from America or London. So every human being will be termed as an object for a class human being. Now when you come across to an object will have its own set of characteristics. That means one student, let's say one student is very good in Java, the other one will be having very expertise in Python. So everyone will be composed within some individual characteristics. So that is how you differentiate between your class and object. So I will stress on this because class and object is a very 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 important concept, because if you don't have any understanding of class and object, then working in Java, it's a very very challenging for us, because everything, whatever we start a program to testing, everything is composed of your class and object concept. So you should have good understanding, or and you should be start exploring on about the class and object. The more you the more you program on Java, the more you will got to know about this class object relationship. And because many people still have some will come up with an assumption that class is a blueprint and object just represents that blueprint. So there is nothing like blueprint, but as I say, an example of human being and the student, or maybe that the individual of that human being population, that will represent an object. Now, once we come across with a class and object, then it will come as something like your inheritance, polymorphism, then your abstraction and your encapsulation will come. So first we had a good understanding about class and object. So then comes about your inheritance. Now let's say I have one class called your shape here. So if you see in the screenshot, like I have something like shape. So SAP will have something like inbuilt function. Let's say like uh, like draw is a something one function we have. Now I have defined three more subclasses like triangle, circle, or rectangle, which they are using the same method like draw. Correct. So this draw method, we have given our own way of defining a function on our class called set. Now instead of rewriting the same thing in triangle, defining the same thing in triangle, same thing defined in circle or maybe in rectangle, so it is something like rewriting the same piece of code. Correct. It has already been there, so why we need to rewrite? So that's why Java has come up with a beautiful concept like inheritance. So with the help of keyword like extends, you can like directly you can get all these methods available into your triangle or circle or rectangle, and you can reuse the code. So see how how it makes very simpler, how it makes our effort easy go. So when we are working in a very big project, so we understand like big project will involve lot of Java classes, so at least 100 to 150 Java classes, and understanding each and every Java classes, which will be composed of something around 2000 3000 piece of code. So and that to time and the requirements will be very less. So with the concept of inheritance, they have within a small time frame, like we can easily program the Java, and we can design a very beautiful, I mean, design a requirement for every complexity of the requirement. So this is how the syntax will look like, something like your child class, and which will extend to your the base class, the parent class. So the parent class, understand that parent class will have its own method, and which we want to reuse that method. So base class, sorry, the child class extends the base class or parent class, and the methods and fields will be automatically available to your child class. So with the help of the object of this child class, you can reuse that function that is available in your parent class. So this is a very important concept. As I say, going forward, like when you go to the software industry, like every time you will come across with this inheritance concept. So understanding the inheritance concept is a important one here. So here it is something like a sample program given here. Now we'll deep dive into the polymorphism. Polymorphism is the second most important factor, like when you're designing it or when you're developing a something Java programming. So this is something we'll come across when you start using the inheritance concept, because there we have something like method overriding, something that is available in your parent class and that is automatically getting inherited to your child class. But you want to come up with your own implementation. You don't want to use that something that is available in your parent class. So you can do that method overriding. You can give your own implementation, and you can get the result based on your expectations. And there is one more concept called method overloading. So this method overriding and overloading are a part of this polymorphism. Overloading, let's say I have a one class student, and let's say I have one class like adding two numbers. So in that class, let's say I'm adding two number, or maybe I'm adding three numbers or more than that. So I have designed some methods. One method which will take two arguments, the other method which will take three arguments. But the method name will remain same. So this method name will remain same, but only that argument will vary. So let's say I have there is a one class called summation. So I have two methods, something like add, whose return type is integer, but one method takes two arguments, the other one taking three arguments. So this is something like method overloading. We are just overloading a method here. So when I run a program, something like summation dot add, by passing two arguments, then it will invoke this method because it is taking two arguments. So this compiler will start matching the signature here. It will check, okay, this method takes the two arguments. So it will invoke this method and it will return your result. Now, abstraction, like, Java gives a, uh, you know, very good concept like something abstraction. So whenever you go to an ATM and you want to withdraw your money, right? So you see a lot of instruction on the screen, and something with the help of a tap, you can you withdraw your money. You can see your balance. You can transfer your money from your one account to the other. You see a lot of features, but we never try to see how these features are getting implemented. So let's say when you want to withdraw money, right? You just see something like a menu option, but it never gives their own implementation. So that is how Java, with the help of Java programming language, you can design such a future where we give the solution to the client, but we are not sharing the client that how this programming has been done. So this is all about your abstraction. So even when we do programming, right, when we work in a project, so we give a solution, we give a one like complete package to our client, but we never share with our client that how this programming has been done, what are the functions we have developed, what are the functions we have designed, how this function will work, what are the kind of argument which will take. So we just give a one as a package, so they will be seeing a lot of UI features on there. So with the help of some commands, they will be using that program. So that is how this abstraction is all about. Now encapsulation is like something, right, when we are designing a class in your Java, so we are hiding all this, we are packaging the classes like variables and methods. So if you see this picture, right, it looks like a tablet here. So this tablet will be something like, it is a composed of lot of components here. So one is your variables, the other one is your methods. Variables, let's say let's say I have a class like student, and student will have something like roll number. So let's say integer roll number. Student will also have the name. So let's say string name. So these are all called variables. And method is something like like how to get a roll number of a student. So let's say get roll number whose return type is integer, and what is the details of a student. So there is one more method. So everything is packaged as a part of class. So this is something we call, say, encapsulation. So again, so when we are hiding your variables method, so we come across with an accessors. It's a public, private, protected, and default. Now this is something we do like when we are designing a program, right, in our project. So we have a habit of uh, commenting something, and that is a a very good approach, and everyone should culture this habit, because whenever we get a requirement, right, best practice what the industry follow is like to comment. Let's say I'm getting a requirement from a client. It asked me about uh, that instead of displaying the employee ID on the screen, that I should hide this one. Now it is an existing application, so I need to understand that on which Java program this functionality has been written. So with the help of debug in that Eclipse, I reach to that particular point, and I make sure that okay, this is the place something I need to code my program. Now once I got to know, I will comment something and I will hide that existing feature, and then I start putting up my implementation. So when I comment here, right, then you will be having question why we need to comment. Now see, once our code has been developed, right, then you need to go for a testing. So once the testing has been done, then it will go to your user. User will do a smoke test. So that user will check that application in and around. So once the user is satisfied, so it will give some sign off name. But later on, again, when we are getting some requirement, and same requirement, some more modification we have to do. So let's say maybe I maybe move to some other project, but when some other one who is like working in place of me, when you try to get the code from your repository, right, now with the help of this comment, right, in something in comment I would have written, right, this changes for your hiding the employee code. So that will help them easily to understand the okay, this is the place where I need to do some changes, because earlier this programmer has done these changes. Because nobody will tell what is the need to go for a comment on, but being from the development experiences, and what is the need to go for a comment, this is how beneath it will do. So it is a good practice to start working like how to put a comment, and how a user, when he starts seeing the code, right, he can understand, okay, this function will do this role, this function will do this kind of execution of a statement. So that is a good practice, and everyone should follow. Like, what is the need to go for a comment? So this is how it gives an example, like what we need to do, how a single line comment will look like, how a multi-line comment will look like. So over a practice, you will be acquainted with this comment scenario. Now we have a keyword, something in Java. Hope you all are aware about, like some special characters, how you are going to, what are the syntax to be follow when you are composing a keyword. So these are the list of Java keywords that is available as a part of your JDK, and this is something you do extends when you are going for inheritance concept. Then the interface keyword and Boolean, byte, catch, try catch, flow, switch statement. So these are all at some 42 or 43 keywords that is available as part of your JDK or Java. And these are all your data types. Then how you are going to declare a variable or literals. Let's say when you are creating a class student, right? So student will have some fields value, let's say roll numbers, name, first name, last name, address. So these are all, we can say, kind of variable, and variable will have its own value, correct? And this variable will have some data type. Let's say, for example, roll number. So roll number will uh, obviously it will have a value that is something like integer or maybe float or maybe double. Mostly it is integer because it will be a round value, something like, let's say, roll number 23 or 24. So this indicates the data type, like what kind of data has been stored into your variable. Let's say name will be something like a string. Address will be something like a string. So your data type represents what kind of variable, and literals means the value which has been captured in a variable. Then comes your, variable will be again two more types, your uh, local and global. Local, something which is defined inside a method, and global, something which is defined at the beginning of your class statement. So the access will be like, local variable will be accessed within that method. So once your method has been invoked, at the time the variable will start creating into your memory space. But once the method has been executed, the variable will be get dereferenced. But global is something like when you're when your dot plus file generate, right? So at that time your memory will be get registered for that variable. Then comes your method. It is a very important concept when we are creating a class, because every class, as I see, I have given one example like class test. So test will have something like main method, that is something like comes by default, and this is one user defined method, my method. So what this method will do? Method, it is nothing but it is a kind of block of statement which will have its set of implementation. Let's say my method, if you see here, right, it is something which displays like I'm called from a static method. So the main function of method is to display something, and the function of main method where the execution of program starts. Like once your JVM start compiling this test class, right? So it will understand, okay, this is something where I need to pick my execution here. So hope you are all clear about this concept of method. Now this is something we have discussed about class and object, and I will focus again, like because this is very important concept where we can start studying more on Java. So if you have a good concept of class and object, then the later on modules will be very easier, and it will be very helpful when you go into your software industry. Now we'll come about the static keyword. Now when we are designing a class, right, we have our field value, we have our method. Now most of the time we come across like something we see, like here I've given example like private, then static, then we have a variable like int x equal to 0. But we are very much skeptical about why this keyword something like static we see here and what is the need to it. I will give one basic example. Suppose in a I have one like a requirement that that's something which is to be, let's say in a class of BCA, that something which which need to be distributed among the student. Let's say BCA class has a strength of 350 and it should be shareable among 350 students. Now the same way, with this understanding of the requirement, when we have the same requirement in the Java programming, we use this concept like called static. So when you add the static before to this variable, right? So this variable is going to be shared across the method, shared across that package, shared across that class. So something which is common and that is going to be reused, or that is going to be used in all the method, then we can use that word static. So if we know that the behind meaning of the static, so it is something like which is common across all the functionality, then we can use the concept called static. But if we this variable is something which I'm going to use only this add method, and there is no need to use this variable in some other method like multiplication or division or subtraction, then I can say write something like private int x equal to 0 and use this variable inside this add method. So once this add method is done, then remove this variable from your JVM memory location. Then I no need to go for static. But if I'm going to reuse the same variable over that across that method, then use the concept called static, which is going to be shareable across that method. Now comes your constructors. Now when you have a class, right, so you can see something method like which takes the same method name of which take the same name of your class, and that is nothing your constructors. So the inner meaning of your constructor is something like initialize a variable. So let's say I have a student, I have a class called student, right? So student have some variable like roll number, first name, last name, and address. Now by default, when we are creating an object, right, so it should capture some value, some default value. Then in that case, I can define a constructor and initialize those value. Let's say if I'm not initializing any roll number, right, then it should capture something like roll number 0, name something null, and address something null. If I'm not defining uh, any value to that variable. So here I've given an example. So the constructor may be method overloaded. So by default, it will be a no R constructor. That if you are not writing, it is not mandatory that you should write a constructor. But if you are not writing, JVM, when it starts compiling your code, right, then JVM automatically create a default constructor, something like no R constructor, and it will have first statement like super method. But if you want to come up with your own method, own constructor, then you can write something like public class student record, and then you see something like here, some code goes here. So as I say, your constructor can be overloaded. So it may be a default constructor, it may be uh, one argument based constructor, or maybe multi arguments based on our requirement. Now, this is we understand about like the basics or the basic pillar of your Java, that is your OOPS principle. So once you have a good understanding of OOPS principle, the second basic part is all about your exception and collection and multi-threading. But due to some time constraint, uh, haven't added about the threading concept, but I will give overall idea about what is threading, and I'll walk over about this exception and collection concept as well. So let me start about this exception part. Generally, if you think about our general life, so always there is a problem. For every problem, there is a solution. Let's say I will give you one problem statement that I wake up in the morning, I get up ready, and I ready for my college or for my office. So I take a bus or I take my own vehicle, reach to my office. Then I open up my laptop and I see some problem statement getting from my manager, and I start working around. Now it's not easy that see from getting up to the bed to the hitting to your office room. somewhere, some point of time, you will be facing some challenges. Let's say you are waiting at the bus bay and you didn't get your bus, so you got late for your office. Second point, when you reach your office, there is a power interruption. So for that problem statement, what we have to do? So we need to find a solution. That is nothing like in Java when you try to program something, right? So always there is a chance of getting some error or some exception or some program related challenges. To bypass this problem, Java has given a concept like your exception handling. So they have given something like differentiate kind of exception, like how you're going to handle like recently checked exception, unchecked exception, and error. So based on your exception flavor, how you're going to code your program, right? So I have just given one basic example, like getting up from bed to heading to office or college. In that case, you will be getting a lot of challenges. To overcome these challenges, how you're coming up with your solution. So when you're getting delayed to your office, so you need to catch a bus, but the bus didn't come in time. So at that time, what you need to do? You need to pick up your phone. You need to call your parent that I missed my bus, or maybe that bus got some problem. So kindly come and drop me to that your college or office. So that is how we understand what is the solution or bypass to a problem. Similarly, Java has given this concept like checked exception and unchecked exception. So going forward, like I will explain about more and about how to bypass this exception when we are coding a Java programming. So generally, Java has categorized two types of problem. One is your exception, one is your error. Generally, for error we don't have any solution, but for exception we have some solution, like how to bypass this abnormal termination of your program. Error generally it will shut your program, because see, there are some like error. Let's say when you are working on a computer and suddenly the computer run out with a battery, or you run out with your power, or run out with your backup, you don't have any some other mechanism to continue your laptop. So in that case, your laptop will shut down. That is something called, we say, error. There is some stack overflow error, like when your laptop runs out with your memory. That means you completely run with your hard disk space. So in that case, either you need to arrange one more memory space, or in that case you need to close your laptop. Similarly, for exception, we see like when we are writing a program, right? There are various kind of, the nature of program will vary. Let's say one program here I've given like one something like IO exception. IO exception is something like my program which reads or writes a file into some remote location. So in that case, some chances of input output exception will come. Why? Because when I'm trying to read a file, some X or Y place, right? So in that case, when I try, first thing I need to communicate to that place, try to locate that file and start reading. Sometime what will happen, due to some network issue, I may not set up in some connection between this my place to the other place. Sometimes even I establish a connection, but when I try to locate the file, that file is not available. So in that case, you will get some input output exception. So if you get such kind of scenario, then how you are going to handle a program? Similarly, there are a lot of exception. You see SQL exception, something when you are connecting to a database server. Always, that is our personal experience. Like whenever we are handling a project, then you will be always getting it something like database related issue. So if we are getting related issue, then seeing the exception, we can easily determine what is the nature of that error. So there are a lot of exception, like we see arithmetic null pointer. So like based on your exposure towards more onto your development, or when you start coding your program, based on this nature of exception, you will get lot of clarification. So I've given overall idea, because due to time constraints, I can give some like overall exposure. But first understand what is the need to go for this exception concept in class in Java. So that's why I've started coming with a basic example, because our life is always surrounded with a problem. But for every problem there is a solution. Similarly, Java has given like whenever you code something, right, some problem will come. Not to handle this problem, how we are coming up with solution. And based on that, Java has given their own mechanism. Now, if it is an unchecked exception, what you need to do? If it is a checked exception, how you are going to handle the program? Now, let's say with the help of try, catch, and finally, you can easily handle that exception. And what next has to be done? if I am getting some exception at some line number 32 or line number 33 of your Java program, then what I need to do. So with the help of try catch and finally you can able to catch the exception and you can proceed your program. So try, this is something like, let's say I'm connecting to a database server. So first thing I need to get the server details, then use some SQL statement or maybe JDBC API. So when I get connect to the database, then I locate that database name, the schema name, connect to the schema, then connect to that, locate to the table, then fetch the record. That's how a problem statement looks. But sometimes due to some network bandwidth issue or maybe some internet problem, you lost the connection with your database. But I have some other statement that need to do in the program. So rather Java throwing some exception statement, that I need to write one catch block. Okay, if in this statement where I'm writing some JDBC connection details, and if I'm getting encounter an error, then in catch I need to catch the database exception. Send this statement to your JVM. JVM will understand, okay, there is a exception been encountered. Then I will let the JVM know there is a final block that this statement has to be executed before closing up this program. Because finally block is nothing like, because see, we have created a opened a connection in database, right? That means this connection has not been closed. So and finally I need to close this database connection. Why? Because if next set of user will come, right, he won't get that thread, or he won't get that one more database connection. So the finally I make sure to the JVM that even if I'm get an exception, please close this connection. So if the next set of user will come, then he can get the connection, he can do his statement and come out from the functionality. So I given one example, like something like rate equal to 10 by 0. It is encoded into your try block, then catch, and finally. Now here I see, right, 10 by 0, these are all are indeterminate form, like something which is not defined in your class of mathematics. So this is something like, it's all about arithmetic exception. So this kind of exception has been categorized in Java as a arithmetic exception. So I've written like one catch statement. So here Java will throw an exception. So at the background, what will happen, right? Here JVM will create one exception object. Now when JVM will see that catch statement, right, and this catch statement only it handles with your arithmetic related error, then JVM will delegate this exception object to here. And here I need to do, okay, like display something like exception and say the user that it is something like indeterminate form. So try to program something which looks meaningful. Then in finally I will say to the user that we should not divide a number. So if I don't write finally, right, then program will see, okay, here I'm getting exception, then JVM will terminate this program. So we even in my experience, right, whenever we write a program, whatever the application we do handle, everywhere you see this try catch and finally statement. So this is very, very important concept which is used in industry standards. What I say, first thing is your class and object, then inheritance, polymorphism, and your exception handling. Everywhere, every time we use this concept in designing a project. And you have one more something like keyword like throw. Like if you don't want to handle that exception using try catch, you can directly say to the JVM that this is the exception we got. So displays this to the user that this is something we got arithmetic exception. So please provide some meaningful number. So rather we handling that exception, we are saying JVM, please do this adjustment from your side. So this is something differential about throw and throws. Hope you all are aware. Throw is something we are throwing something Java defined exception or something which is come from your JDK or API level. But if you are declaring your own custom exception, right, then we can't use the word throw. Rather, we need to define as a throws, and we can throw those custom exception to JVM. Now we come to our final topic. It's all about collections. As always, I will focus on this part. It is a very, very and major concept we are still using in our project. And wherever you go to work on, small project to medium project or maybe large project, collection is the most important concept which is been ever used in our industry. First, we need to understand what is collection. So collection is all about something which holds some data, some group of data, uh, maybe some same type or maybe different type. And with the collections, Java has given their implemented in a data structure fashion, like something like, we can search, we can sort an element, we can insert an element, we can delete an element. So this is all about, like, collection has given the features. So as I see in this diagram, so collection will have it's in one interface, but it's given like list, then set, then queue. Map is also one more interface here. So different implementation like array list, linked list, vector, and stack. Hope you are all aware about your data structure. This is something which take implementation from data structure level, and Java has given their own class implementing the data structure. Not work over what list and set, but understand that, list and set, whatever you see the interface or implemented class, right? The main function of using collection is like, it will hold the data types, hold that data of similar data types, and with the help of this data or collection of records, you can either do search, or you can either do delete or insert, or you can use iterate those data from one by one and use in your program. So these are all, like, how this list set, and what are the implementation, what are the features available, what are the, like, methods available, how you're going to add an element, how you're going to delete an element, how you're going to insert on a particular index value. So they've given their own method. So I will focus, like, once you start working around on writing a program based on collection, you will come across with a lot of methods. So the working will give you, like, or the practice will give you more, exposure towards collection. But overall, I've given one short notation like what collection will do. So again, I will stress on, because this collection, this exception handling, oops concept, these are the very, very, very important concept. This is widely used in your project. So this is all about your our Java, and uh, this is the, like, the most, like, important concept which we are using in our day to day, our programming, our project designing. And there is one more thing I just want to give and highlight. It will just take 5 more minutes. Hope you all aware about the frameworks, because framework is something like, something like enhanced future to develop a project within some specific timeline. Because whenever we designing a project, right, so it takes 6 months or 1 year or 2 year, 3 years of development. So if we do follow that very old practice, right, sometime it will take consume more amount of time. So in order to reduce the time and come up with the perfect designing principle, we use the concept of framework. Nowadays, Spring Framework, Spring Boot are into the headlines, and just want to give, like, what the Spring Framework will do, because we generally in our project design we use Spring Framework. Most of the recent project they are adapting to Spring Boot. So basic is a Spring Framework. So if you have a good knowledge on Spring Framework, then Spring Boot is just a, like, enhanced version of your Spring Framework. So Spring Framework, it will give something one principle like IOC, which helps you to manage the dependencies relation. So let's say I will give one example like car and engine. So car will have obviously engine part, right? That means car is dependent on engine. Right? So in order to define this dependency, like, we as a Java programming, we define a class called car, and then we define a class called engine. Then with the help of is a relationship or has a relationship or something, like, use the concept of inheritance, then do lot of programming, then define the relation between the car and engine, then user functionality. So here we see, right, there is a completely tight coupling with your car and engine. That is something, if you do change on engine, then it is going to affect your car, right? As a basic example, let's say I have a car. So if I do some modification on engine, then the performance on your car is going to impact. The same way, if you do some changes, then one more class is going to affect it. So sometimes it creates a lot of problem. So in order to overcome this problem, Spring Framework has given the future like loosely coupling. That's why Spring Framework comes into your software designing or project designing. Now every project in our software industry, they are adapting to Spring Framework. So I'll focus like I will stress on like because if you have once you have a good exposure on Java, like Java mostly on collection, your exception and oops concept, then I will advise you to start working around some web-based application using Spring Framework. Now I've given on hands-on about Spring Framework, what Spring Framework will do. So it will make your program very loosely coupling. So let's say if you are changing something in your one program, the other program is not going to be get hampered. So the effort is very less. Designing a project looks very feasible, and performance also very good. So this is all about Spring Framework. Spring Framework has lot of core concept like Spring MVC, Spring AOP, and Spring JDBC, Spring Security. A lot of things are there, but understand like why Spring Framework. Then you can easily understand from your own what is Spring MVC, JDBC, and Spring Security or Spring AOP. So that is how like today's session it will be, if time permits or if cognizant or give some more session on about this Spring Framework. I will definitely come up with some important concept of Spring Framework and how the development of project goes uh, very smooth, and how we are coming up with a finite package with the help of Spring Framework. So that is how all about today's topic. Over to you, Jayanti ma'am. Hello, Jayanti ma'am or Prabharan sir.
Sir? Yes, sir.
Sir, I have
One
completed
second,
that.
sir.
Yeah, today's topic. So if student has some concerns or doubts, they are feel free to share their questionnaires here.
Okay. Sir, over to Chitra ma'am. Chitra ma'am?
Yes, sir. So, good evening to everyone. I would like to thank our chief guest, Mr. Sujit Nayak, for enlightening us with his knowledge. He gave our students a clear view on concepts, OOPS concepts, classes, inheritance, and polymorphism with basic problems. I'm pretty sure the precious knowledge that our chief guest gave us will definitely help our students. Once again, I would like to thank our chief guest. Thank you, sir. We
Thank
are
you, Chitra ma'am. Thank you, Chitra ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We are thankful to our Honorable Trustee, sir, and Secretary, Madam, for their motivation. I would like to thank our Principal, sir, and Vice Principal, sir, for their continuous support. I would like to thank DBT Coordinator, Mr. Dhanabalan, sir, and Mrs. Manju, ma'am, Placement Coordinator, for her tremendous support. And also, I thank all our directors, HOD, and all our faculty members. Also, my thanks to all the students. Thank you. Thank you, Sujit, sir.
Thank you, Chitra ma'am. Thanks for giving this opportunity to share my experiences. Hope it gives us some clarification, some insights to the student. So when they approach to that software industry, so it will give lot of confidence to from the day one to tackle that complexity of program to understanding the requirement and timely delivery of the project. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sujit. Thank you. Thanks a lot. It's Jayanti.
Thanks, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.